Elijah Hawkins was disrespected, snubbed, and all that stuff. It is not okay, and I'm going to tell you why today on Locked On Golden Gophers.
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And today we are talking Gophers hoops, men's and women's basketball, but we have to talk about the absolute highway robbery that took place with Elijah Hawkins. And I'm not talking about a steal on the court. I'm talking about the Big Ten first, second, and third team nominations that came out, not nominations, the actual postseason awards. They've come out, and Elijah Hawkins' name was missing from the actual Big Ten teams. He got honorable mention, and that is not good enough, folks. I'm going to dive into why that's not okay. Then we're going to talk about the Gophers Big Ten matchup coming up with Michigan State and what it would look like for a run. How tough is the Gophers' path to the championship game? And maybe their only shot, actually is their only shot at making the NCAA tournament, is winning the whole dang thing. Is it possible? It's going to be a tough one. We're going to talk about that road, and then finally, we'll wrap up with the women's basketball team and what happened in their Big Ten NCAA or Big Ten tournament here on Locked On Golden Gophers. So be sure to hit subscribe, be sure to hit like, be sure to leave your comments on just how downright wrong it was leaving Elijah Hawkins off the first, second, and third team of the Big Ten teams. Now, let's dive into it, because why am I so ticked? Why am I so distraught at the fact that Elijah Hawkins, our point guard, did not make an all Big Ten team? Because it is unnerving, it is unsettling, it is uncalled for, and probably unprecedented what he did and then doesn't get onto an all Big Ten team. Because how in the world do you have a point guard in your conference that is second, not one, but two in the entire nation? Not just in the Big Ten, not just in the high majors, in the entire country, all 351 Division I basketball schools. And he's second in assists with 224 assists and second in assists per game with 7.5 assists per game in 351 Division I basketball schools. If you want to add that up, that's 4,563 scholarship Division I basketball players, because each team gets 13 scholarship offers for a Division I basketball school. So 4,563 players, and he is second of all of those 4,500 plus players in the entire country in assists. And it's not like I'm saying, oh, well, he's second in the entire country in EPA if you look at this and you do this. And no, I'm not talking about, oh, he's second in blocks, and blocks can happen here in the no. I am talking about one of the three major categories in which anybody who slightly knows the sport of basketball knows the stats of points, rebounds, and assists. Points, rebounds, and assists. It's that easy. Now, I'm not saying that you can't dive into those more efficiency things to get into how special a player is, but when you're looking specifically at the hard numbers of the easy stats, he's second in the entire nation in assists and assists per game. It's not a fluky number. He set the Gopher program record. He set the single season record. He set the single game record, and he can't get on an all Big Ten team. That is ridiculous. It's absurd. It's downright wrong. And that's some of the most important counted stats out there. Points, rebounds, assists. Those three stats are what pop on any box score. So how does he not make the all-conference team? I'm not even saying that he needed to be on the first team. I'm not even saying he had to be on the second team, but not to make three of the all Big Ten teams is just downright disrespectful. It's a travesty, and it just shows you that assists and facilitating in the NCAA in college basketball is an undervalued skill in college hoops. In the NBA, they love assists. They talk about assists all the time. Chris Paul made a Hall of Fame career on assists, and he's never won a championship. But in college basketball, it's different. It's not as sexy. It's not the stat that people like to talk about or write about. Elijah Hawkins is making a huge impact and is showing up not only in the box score, but also in the win column. In a sport where we love to hype up points, we love to hype up rebounds, and we will tell anybody that posts big numbers, oh, dude had 20 rebounds. It was insane. But if Elijah Hawkins has 20 assists, why isn't that insane? Actually, it is insane. And many people will give you credit on 20 assists. But at the same time, when it comes to leading the entire country in that category, how can you get left off of an all Big Ten team? Now, it's not just like, okay, all he did was had his assists and he never scored and he never played defense and he got scorched on defense. And on top of that, he turned the ball over like crazy. No, he had fairly good numbers across the board. In fact, across the entire, he's been first or second in assists across the entirety of the regular season, about 30 regular season games. He's been at the top of the list. It's not like he had a couple big games that brought him up. No, he's been doing it all season long. But then if you look at the rest of what is happening, you will see he had 9.4 points per game, just under double digit scoring, 1.7 steals per game, most on the entire Minnesota team. He was tied for top 4 in the entire conference when it comes to steals per game. He has improved on his turnovers. He was averaging 4 turnovers a game over his last 2 seasons. He comes in this year and he is averaging 2.8 turnovers per game. Now that might sound like a lot, but when you're looking at his assist to turnover ratio, he's almost averaging 3 assists to 1 turnover. So he has been a major impact. But the players you hear about on the Gophers are Dawson Garcia at the forefront, are Cam Christie at the forefront. Both of them acknowledged in the Big Ten teams, one getting all Big Ten freshman, one getting second team all Big Ten. But Elijah Hawkins gets honorable mention. And Dawson Garcia was also ticked about this. He went to Twitter and he voiced his frustration about how do you lead the entire country in assists and not get on an all Big Ten team. He wasn't the only one. Former Gopher, currently with the SEC Gamecocks, the South Carolina Gamecocks, Talon Cooper, former Gopher, talked about that is crazy. He posted on my post about Elijah Hawkins, talking about that is wild that he didn't get on an all Big Ten team, being one of the best assist men in the country, not one of the best, but a top 2 assist man in the entire country. So the Big Ten, they should be embarrassed. They should be disappointed in themselves because an impact player and his impact on the team has shown. This is a team that has been in the cellar of the Big Ten for the past 2 years. We've seen them at the bottom in the 14th slot of the Big Ten for the past 2 years. And yet Elijah Hawkins and his impact has shown not only in his distribution, not only in his facilitating of this offense, but in the win column where the Gophers have bounced back and got 18 wins, the biggest increase of wins from one season to another in the Big Ten by a wide margin. The Gophers had a huge leap and it turned into wins in the win column and it showed in the stat sheets, and yet he still was snubbed. He's a top player in the conference in steals. He's undersized. He comes from a low major program. He took that team to a tournament run. He is in his first year in a high major program and leads the entire country in assists. And the Big Ten doesn't see him as an all Big Ten player. It's embarrassing. It's an oversight. And the conference really should apologize to Elijah Hawkins, if we're being honest. But it's not surprising because he doesn't play for a school that is known for its hoop success. He doesn't play for your Purdue. He doesn't play for your Michigan State. He doesn't play for your Ohio State at times, who had some thriving times in those early mid 2000 teens and whatnot. He doesn't play for one of the helmet schools that we call them in football. I don't know if you want to call them a court school in basketball, but he doesn't play for one of those. And so he gets snubbed. He gets overlooked. He gets underappreciated, undervalued outside of Minnesota. And that's not okay. It doesn't show you, it doesn't give players opportunity that they've earned. It doesn't give them the recognition that they've earned when they've put it out there on the court. And overall, I think it's downright disgusting. Now, we're going to turn our eyes towards the Big Ten tournament, but I want to apologize to Elijah Hawkins for the disrespect and the disregard that he did not get in honor of the all Big Ten team. You should be and are an all Big Ten player in my mind. And we're going to move on to the Big Ten tournament, where hopefully he can make some noise as well, because the Gophers are going to need a big run in order to have any shot at the NCAA tournament. In fact, they're going to have to win the whole dang thing. Is it a possibility? We're going to talk about what that route would look like for the Gophers coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Nissan, because are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what an adventure could be right around the next corner? Well, our friends over at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. And you can check out both their 2024 Nissan Rogue or the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder, which both of them are high quality, top tier vehicles. My wife drives the Nissan Rogue and we love it out here. It's smooth, it's a good ride. It actually has a little bit of speed to it, a little bit of get up to it as well. But it's perfect for city drives and great escapes. It has class exclusive Google built in, and it's now always updating assistant to call. You can call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone, because the Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into your touchscreen information system. So the 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. But I also want to give it up for the Pathfinder. It has room for up to 8 people, and it has expansive cargo capacity and advanced 4x4 capability with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. So if you want to check out those new Nissan vehicles, definitely head on over to nissanusa.com, shop nissanusa.com, and take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go to find your next big adventure with Nissan. All right, Gophers fans, let's talk about this Big Ten tournament matchup, which hopefully will lead to the NCAA tournament for the Gophers. If they can win the whole dang thing, then they can get to the NCAA tournament. But if not, it's likely looking like an NIT bid for the Gophers. Regardless, postseason play is accepted and needed for this squad. But this is a team that is going to face Michigan State for the 3rd time this season. Now, they have won one and they lost one. They lost on the road, they won at home, but it's a game that road game, they should have been able to take that game. They were in the game, down to the wire, in the fight without their star point guard in Elijah Hawkins. So overall, Minnesota should have 2 wins against Michigan State, but only has 1. So let's make it 2 coming up on Thursday in the Big Ten tournament. A team, again, that both of the games were down to the wire, competitive games, and a team that adds fuel to the fire with Cam Christie when they continue to say that his brother Max Christie is better. So the fan base is after Cam, and he gets a little extra motivation in this one. But this matchup should be a good one. And Minnesota matches up well with Michigan State, personnel-wise, size-wise. Everything plays out really well between the two teams. So can the Gophers get another win on their home turf here in Minnesota at the Target Center? That will be the major question heading into the Big Ten tournament, because if they can do that, they can move on to the next round. Now, luckily, the Gophers aren't playing on Wednesday, so that's one less game that they would have to play to make it to the championship. But like the Gophers, Michigan State has been limping to the end of the regular season. They lost 4 of their last 5 games, and one win came on senior night with a packed house in East Lansing that definitely helped amp that up and get them on track. Now, that being said, the Gophers tournament route in the Big Ten tournament is extremely difficult, and it will be an absolute juggernaut. If they can get through the entire Big Ten tournament and win this whole thing, they will be battle tested and a scary team heading into the NCAA tournament, because you've got to take on Tom Izzo, a coach who always finds a way to get it done when it comes to the March Madness, when it comes to the Big Ten tournament. He finds a way to have his teams in the thick of it into the very important games. If you get past him, then you move on to a top 3 school in Purdue, and you're going to have to take on the player of the year, Zach Edey, who could possibly be the 2-time player of the year. And you know what? Zach Edey is a mammoth of a man, and on top of that, he is going to be a problem on himself, but they've got all sorts of talent around him. Purdue is no joke, and it's why they've been a top 5 team in the country basically the entire season. So if you get past Michigan State, and then you get past Purdue, then you're going to likely have to take on either Wisconsin or Northwestern, who have both been floating around being ranked or have been ranked or right on the edge of ranking all season long. And on top of that, they've been in the top 4 teams for almost the entirety of the Big Ten season. So that's another challenge. You're taking on at least 2, maybe you could call all 3 juggernauts in the Big Ten in your tournament season. And all of that, you do all of that. If you get through those 3 brutal matchups, then you're finally playing in the Big Ten championship. And at that point, you've definitely earned it, but it's still not a guarantee. And the only way to get an auto bet is to win that Big Ten tournament and win that championship game after going through those 3 schools, where you would likely be playing the winner of the Nebraska, Illinois, Indiana side of the bracket. Now, Ohio State could sneak in over there as well, but overall, you've got tough teams. Now, Minnesota has battled every single team in this conference down to the wire at certain points. They've given them all runs and fights, so they can be in these games, but to do it back to back to back to back every single night with no breaks and needing to recover quickly and needing different players to step up and be at their best every single night, that's a tough ask. And it's something this Gophers team, this iteration of this Gophers team has not had to go through. In fact, the only players who have experience doing something of the sort are Dawson Garcia and Elijah Hawkins. So both of those players will probably be the players at the forefront, leading the charge with their leadership, leading the charge with their production, and hopefully we'll get some added elements of fire from Cam Christie, added elements of fire from Mike Mitchell Jr. showing he's right there with these guys, and Parker Fox. That gives you a handful of guys, your starters, to really get in there and get after it. And Pharrell Payne can follow suit as well. That gives you 6 players. That's your core rotation right now. But if you get Joshua Joseph back into the rotation, you get Braden Carrington to lock down on defense, you have a shot at some of these things. It's going to be an extremely difficult challenge, but the Gophers could get it done. Now, most likely the Gophers are looking at an NIT bid, but if Minnesota can make a magical tournament run happen, then like I said, they will be ready for the NCAA tournament and having to go through that path. And they will be a team that nobody would want to face in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Now, this has been a much improved season for Ben Johnson, and hopefully it's just the first of many to come, but this special group needs to find their best basketball now for the Big Ten tournament, especially if you want to have a shot, but also even going into an NIT tournament, you want to capitalize because this group is going to be different. There's likely going to be some changes, and we don't know what the extent of those changes are. We're hopeful that many of these players will be back. The core of this team will be back and ready to make a huge run next season and show everybody why they were wrong about Minnesota, why Elijah Hawkins deserved to be on a Big Ten team in 2023-24. Well, he dang sure will be on one in 24-25 if he's back with the squad. Dawson Garcia will look to get on a Big Ten first team. Cam Christie will look to show that he is a dominant player in this conference. Pharrell Payne will look to get up there. I think if this core comes back, you could have something truly special here in Dinkytown, but we'll see what happens. There are going to be some changes. We just don't know to what extent. So hopefully those changes aren't major. The men's basketball team, though, isn't the only team looking to hopefully get into the NIT because the women's basketball team is hoping for some postseason play as well. We're going to dive into them and how impressive Amaya Battle was in that Big Ten tournament coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. Let's try that again. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel because you can say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. So you don't have to worry about 1 or 2 games and your contender went down in the first round, Purdue last year. But overall, whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing with America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So you take a shot on one of the heavy contenders to go get their first round win, and then you get that $5 win on it. All of a sudden, you got $200 in bonus bets guaranteed in your pocket, ready to go. That's $200 to use on points, spreads, money lines, and you can even pick who's going to win it all in the NCAA tournament. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet college hoops until they cut down the nets. I'll see you there, FanDuel, official sportsbook of Locked On. All right, Gophers fans, let's talk about what we saw to close up the season with the women's basketball team, because it was a Big Ten tournament for the women last week. I was there in the flesh, and you know what? It was a great tournament to be a part of. Overall, it was survive and advance. That's what tournament season is, whether it's the Big Ten tournament, the NIT, the NCAA tournament, or anything else. It is win or go home. And the Gophers women's basketball team played on the Wednesday, the first round of the tournament, and they found a way to win. Even after Destiny Adams, the best player on Rutgers team, had a career day. I'm talking 30 plus points. I'm talking like 24 rebounds, set the Big Ten tournament record for single game rebounds. But Minnesota still found a way, because Amaya Battle was hot from the floor from start to finish. The best game I have ever seen Amaya Battle play happened in that first round of the NCAA tournament. She started the game with 2 pull-ups, one from the 3-point line. In the first quarter, she had 14 points, 1 assist, and 3 rebounds. She was the entire offense for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now, as they went on, when Amaya left the floor, that's when Rutgers started to make a comeback, because Minnesota was heavily up in this game. In fact, they forced 9 turnovers on Rutgers in that first quarter. But once she left the floor in the second quarter, all of a sudden Rutgers goes on a 15-2 run, and the Gophers go from winning that game 28-16 to all of a sudden only up by 1 point. So the Gophers struggled to stop the scoring in the post. Was a major mishap for the Gophers on defense, and especially in the third quarter. That is what kept Rutgers alive. And then Rutgers cleaned up their turnover issues. In the first half, they had 15 turnovers. In the second half, I believe they had 2 turnovers to close out the rest of the game. So that's what kept Rutgers in the fight. Minnesota was only up at the end of the third quarter by 1 point, and it was down to the wire. But Amaya Battle stepped up. Nia Holloway played her best game of the season, in my opinion, as well. She was all over the floor playing physically. She was D'ing up on Destiny Adams, who was having a game of a lifetime, giving her issues, giving her flux. She was making Destiny Adams mad in certain occasions, and it really was helping the Gophers on the defensive end with multiple steals. On the offensive end, she had 7 points. She found a way to get 9 rebounds in that game. Nia Holloway looked like she was confident in the knee. She was ready to go, and if that Nia Holloway continues on, if they get into the postseason or into next year, that's the player that the Gophers have so much hope for, so much pride in, so much behind, because they know that she wants it. They know that she's a fighter, and she's proven that through her injury that took away her freshman year, comes into her redshirt freshman year, fights through it all, stays on the court, plays throughout the entirety of the season, and plays her best basketball to end the Big Ten tournament. So overall, I loved what I saw from her. Loved to see her get her confidence and get comfortable once again. But then you head into round 2. And so Amaya Battle had 32 points in that game, 0 turnovers in that first game. I'm like, this is the best game I've seen Amaya Battle play. If she plays like this every single night, that's the Amaya Battle, the upside that we have seen. So you head into round 2 game, and you're hopeful. You cautiously optimistic is what I was trying to go for there. And yet you go and you have to take on an opponent like Michigan. Michigan is no slough. Michigan gets it done. Michigan lost to Minnesota earlier in the year, but that was with Mara and Sophie. And that said, I wouldn't have counted Minnesota out, because if Amaya Battle played the same way she played in that first game, and then she got some help from the shooters like Grace Graholski, like Mal Hire, who both of them didn't shoot well in the first game. And spoiler alert, but they didn't shoot well in the second game either. If they would have been able to get hot from 3, plus you have that Amaya attacking from all over and being a force on the offensive end. And then on top of that, you find ways to get different baskets. They could have been in the fight, but overall, it was too much for Minnesota. Michigan takes them down. Now, heading into that game, I talked about their interior defense was a struggle against Rutgers. That's what kept Rutgers in that game. And that was where Michigan attacked, and then some in that round 2 game. They were constantly going into the interior. They had a couple of threes that helped generate as well, but everything, the main point of the game plan for Michigan was to attack Minnesota on the inside. And it paid off. They ended up beating the Gophers big. But if you watch that game through the third quarter, maybe the middle of the fourth, the Gophers were in the fight and they were taking it to them. They're finding ways to claw back, but they ran out of steam. So overall, I think the biggest revelation in this tournament is Nia Holloway was feeling back to herself, playing physical and confident. And not that she hasn't in moments, but it felt like it was 100% there in this tournament matchup. Ayanna Johnson had some moments of flash in the post, had some moments that it was like, okay, I can see the potential. I can see what's going on here, but there were also a lot of things you got to clean up, especially at the rim. Too many missed layups, missed bunnies right there that were opportunities on a team that was already struggling to score. But the biggest thing to take away was Amaya Battles. She took a leap, and it was not even close in these two games. She scored 54 combined points in the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament. And honestly, if they could have got past Michigan and got to that third game, I would not have been surprised to see her name in that list of all tournament players. Layla Felia of Michigan was one of the all tournament players in this one. And you know what? I think Amaya Battle showed a ton of promise. I think she took the pressure off of herself when it came to Mara going down to injury. I feel like she put a lot of pressure on herself, and it didn't help over that next stretch of games. But I feel like in the Big Ten tournament, she was just like, you know what? I'm going to play free. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do what coaches asked me to do, and I'm going to be confident. And that showed, and it was the best basketball I've seen her play in her 2 years here with Minnesota. Another thing I wanted to mention in that second game was the Jock Maddle. She is a true freshman from Canada. I have had high hopes for her. She has the size and the length to be a threat in the Big Ten and in women's basketball, but I think it was just getting her up to speed, getting her to the play style and the speed of Division I. And it took some time, but you saw it click. She had 11 points, 1 rebound, 1 steal in this game as she came in a bench effort, and then she got heavy minutes in that Michigan game because she was playing well. And that's exactly why you want to see the Gophers go to postseason play and hopefully get into the WNIT, because you want to see young players like that get more experience under their belt, get more time in that tournament style, that win or go home style. This is the perfect thing for the Gophers. The Big Ten tournament was won because it was here in their backyard. So it was only a 10-minute drive. They got to sleep in their own beds and whatnot. I think they might have stayed at the hotel, but you get what I'm saying. Regardless, it was good because you got to play back-to-back nights. Now, hopefully you can get into the WNIT and maybe get a run going. It is also on the road, so you get to travel somewhere, be with your team, prep in a different way, and see postseason play that this young team hasn't really experienced. And then hopefully you can grow from that. You can get some games, get some wins, maybe go 3+ wins in that WNIT to really get that postseason feel under your belt, and be able to make a run at the NCAA tournament next year, be able to be a contender in the Big Ten once you get your starters back and maybe make some moves this offseason. The young team of the Gophers is in good shape with Coach Don Plitzowite, and year 2 should be pretty smooth with more instinctual play, because you got to think about it. Everything was still being implemented and learned, and things were being plugged in and played on the fly, because you got to learn so much with a new coach, with a young team that hasn't been through it all, and it's a completely different system. So every week was a new learning experience. Every road game was a different experience. Every way they approach different things and different play styles and different how you break down the film and how you adjust and how you practice for things. Everything was a learning experience for this Gophers women's basketball team, and they started out 14-5 in that learning experience. Then they lose their best player. Then they lose another starter, and all of a sudden they go on a down streak, but they find a way to capitalize towards the back half and make a little bit of a run in the Big Ten tournament. Overall, I think this team is going to be destined for high hopes in the next year. If everyone can stay healthy, they will be a dangerous team in the conference, and I look forward to covering them for you here at Locked On Golden Gophers. That's going to do it for us today. Now, tomorrow we're going to talk about the football team. We're going to talk about players to keep an eye on that could maybe push for time. We're going to talk about new potential starters, training camp battles to look at for the spring, and so much more. So be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss that. I'll see you then. Row the boat, Sky Imago Gophers, as always, and don't forget to subscribe.